Express is? Anybody?
Something fast?
Something fast? Sure.
I think he's looking for the right answer.
So it's a server-side web framework for Node. So this is something that can run on the server. This is a third-party package module, right? So this is something we'll install. It's not built into Node, but it works with Node. It's going to help us with routing. There's a lot of good routing use for it. It can interact with databases. It can support sessions. It can support user authentication. It can also support different formatting outputs, such as HTML and JSON and XML. And it also improves security against web attacks. Okay, so these are some of the things it can do, but it's an entire framework. So let's get started, and we're going to start with building our own server. So first things first, we have to install Express. So npm Express. Can you see that? I think did I do npm install, yes. npm install Express. I don't have my glasses on. That makes sense. Couldn't see anything very well. npm, yeah, you can write npm I or install. I is short for install. So it's less writing. So that's what I do. I have like super lazy fingers. And it found some vulnerabilities. Straight. Okay, so I'm gonna shrink this down. Okay, and then with that installation, we should have gotten a package JSON, but I'm not. You got a package?
I don't think it finished the install because of the bugs.
Because of the what?
I don't think the install completed because it needed to fix the audits.
No, it
So you
should.
might have it installed somewhere else, but it's not.
It should have still installed it. Regardless, I think I have it, so I'm gonna act like I have it. Yeah, we can. If it didn't show up, we can also npm in it. That's fine. If you want to create your own package JSON, npm in is short for initialize. Then you can click through all this, and we definitely have a package JSON now. Yeah, Danny. You didn't get. Well, let's just see if it works. But you can go ahead and npm init to get your package JSON. Seems to be here. It doesn't have my dependency, so I'm going to just try again to npm install npm I express just to see if it shows up. If not, I'm not going to worry too much, but it should. And I hope you follow along. Okay, there it is. Now you can see that Express is one of our dependencies. Has everybody successfully gotten to this step? Yes. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to close the package JSON because I'm not doing much with it. I'm also going to add a little getignore file because I don't want to worry about that node modules when I do push. So I'll say dot get ignore. And in there, I'm going to add that I want to ignore my node modules slash.
So I have a package lock.
That's kind of odd. Not sure. So just go ahead and do npm init Sure. Click through it and then install Express. That fixed it?
I had like 5 vulnerabilities, and when I installed it, it went on.
Okay. Just go ahead and do the init. Add that git ignore. We're going to ignore the node modules because that's not something we'll want to push to GitHub. Cool.
So any file that we want to ignore, we can just add it into git ignore with the slash.
Mm-hmm.
Even our own files.
Well, this is a folder.
Well, like say if we created like another app.js and did some random stuff in there, we can ignore it.
Probably, but you don't really want to ignore things with Git unless you don't want to push it or ever save it or anything.
Okay.
So if it's not something you like need to run your app, you might as well just not have that. Okay, so let's go back into app and let's create our first Express server. I'm pretty excited about this. So we're going to say const express, and we are going to require express. Right? Seems familiar. Okay, so last time we did this with HTTP. That's when we were just using Node out of the box. Right? Now we're going to be using a package. What makes Express better? Well, it does all those other things I listed, but it's really the routing that makes it a lot easier. Security, to make sure to fight against like web attacks and things. It's a lot more straightforward, and we're going to be able to do a lot of different things with routing a lot easier. We won't have to do all these if-else, else-ifs, and things like that. Okay, so after that, we generally make a variable called app, and we start our Express server there by invoking Express. This is essentially boilerplate code. So this is code that just is like in every project. It doesn't like change. Yeah. That's what it means to be boilerplate. Like your code will be the same as someone else's code. It's not copying and pasting. This isn't a plagiarizing. This is just how it's written. Cool. This is how it's expected. How like. Yeah, right, like that HTML frame when we do HTML5. Same kind of idea. It's just a bunch of boilerplate. That's just how it is. There's not any like artistic ingenuity to it. Okay, so after this, we have to also declare our port. I'm going to go ahead and make my port 3000 again. And I'm going to say app.listen. And app.listen, just like before with our server, takes in our port and a callback function that will fire. So I'll just have a log to my server so I can see it's running, and I'll say something like server is running on port. Any questions so far? Should look pretty similar to yesterday's, just slightly different. But nothing really revolutionary here. Let's try. Let's start up our first Node server. So we'll say node app.js, and I get servers running on port 3000. Great. Yeah, Brandon. Great question. So he says, what about NodeMon? Yeah, so if I decided that I actually wanted this to have one end because I was crazy, and I save it, the change is not reflected, right? So again, I'd have to kill the server. So that sucks. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and use NodeMon. No daemon app.js, and it will work the same. I think everyone's installed it globally, so you should have it. Well, if you weren't here, you should install NodeMon globally by npm I nodemon-g. And again, if I make a change and save, it will kill the server and restart it. So we don't have to remember to do that. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. So yesterday we had that callback function inside of our create server, right? And that when it took requests, and when it hit the request, we could give some kind of response, right? So similarly, we're going to write that here above app.listen. And this is really cool. This is going to help us with our routing. So I'll say app.get. Get here is referring to get requests, right? So there's a few different types of requests. And the most popular ones here, this is a Sharpie in this list. That was close. Is get requests. So get request refers to getting back data. There is, I think, post requests. Post requests tend to be submitting like an entire form. This is like a new whole entry that you're adding to a database. So think like form submission. Sending back data. So this is when the front end is sending data back. Another popular one is, well, what do they want me to teach you? Hang on. Well, there's a few things. Okay. They have a put request. A put is updating an entire entry. So like if there was something in a data table with about a user, and I just wanted to change my last name. Let's say I got married and I'm changing my last name. But the put request would take some things that were different, like the last name, but it would also send the all of my other information. So it would still say my first name is Corey. It would still say my middle names, which I'm not getting into. It would say my new last name, which would be Tana Sood. I'm not changing. She's going to change hers to mine. No, that's what she wants. It doesn't matter. She kept her name for now, but when she gets her citizenship, let's forget. So this is like, so you can think of this as updating an entry, updating data, updating data as a whole. Okay, this next one's not in the curriculum, but it's part of it. Patch. This is updating just the thing. So I wouldn't send like my whole first name and middle names and things. I would just be sending like my ID, like so they know who it is, and the new last name. So this is like updating specific data. So these both come. So all three of these come with data coming in, and then lastly we have a delete. Who knows what that is? It's like deleting, right? Deleting data. So my wife and I get divorced. She deletes me. No, we're not getting a divorce. Not yet. No, like things are good. No, things are good. She says I'm the worst thing. For now, like so far, all right. Let's focus on the code, okay? Of course I'm recording. Will would kill me if I didn't. Yeah. All right, so we've got our get. Get is for getting data. Post is for creating like a whole new entry of data. Put is replacing a whole new entry of data. Patch is updating like specific columns of an entry of data. This will all make more sense when we actually get into databases. And delete is like deleting an entire entry of data. Yeah, she is.
So these are called what exactly?
These are called like part of the RESTful API. So when you're creating an API, you want to make that API RESTful, which means it should have these types of things. It should be clear what it's going to do. Like if I say /films, right, then you know I should be getting all the films. But if I say /film/ID of some ID, you know I should be getting back to one film, right? If I'm deleting a film, there should be /films/ID of that film, but with a delete request attached to it. Those will all make more sense as we're going. So it's okay if it doesn't make perfect sense. Lately, as in so far, we've only really been dealing with GET requests. So let me show you how this is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and say app.get. App.get. This is something Express is giving us, and it takes in two arguments. First argument is the path that we will get things for. So with this path right now, it's just plain slash. When the API makes a GET request to this server with a plain slash, I'm going to send something back, or I'm going to do something, and that something is the second argument, which is a callback function. Who can guess what the two arguments of this callback function are? Request and response. Perfect. Request and response. All right, I'm going to make this a fat arrow function, and instead of saying, I think yesterday we did res.end, right? Today we're going to do res.send. So we're just going to throw in an extra s. Yeah?
So that path, that's equivalent to when we had a if statement check URL?
Yes. So when we had just a slash, well, I think we did it as the else. But by default, it was just slash. Do you remember when we got it to say hello world in the beginning, and it was just slash when we first looked at the request.url? And then we changed it to, I think, people. And we saw it said /people. So when there's nothing, it's just a plain slash. Bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was dramatic. Okay, so this time we're going to say res.send. Later on, we're going to do res.json, or when we're sending a JSON. But I'm going to go ahead and send you made a GET request at /URL, just so we can really see what this is. All right, my server is running. I know it got updated because I'm using NodeMon. If you're not using NodeMon, please kill your server and start it again. And now let's see the action. Let's do it with Postman, just so we can make some other requests. So I'm opening up Postman, if you can't see, on my computer. And it's verifying Postman. And it's... What song are you singing?
Postman.
Oh, I love that song, yeah. Every time, same. The other application, it's between Postman or Man in the Mirror. So we decided to name it Postman. Okay. So we're gonna get rid of cats. So this is just HTTP. I don't know if I can enlarge this. Let me try. Oh, I can. Hallelujah. Okay. So HTTP://localhost:3000, and I have a slash, and that is representing that path as a slash. I'm making a GET request as indicated right in this area I'm circling, and we're going to send, and we get you made a request at /URL. Okay? I know it doesn't seem as exciting because this big reveal happened yesterday, but it is still exciting. I can prove it that it's still exciting. Let's go back. Let's make something similar to yesterday. Let's say I'll just do it up here, and let's say I made a people thing again. That's this array, and I'll just put some names in there. I'll say Corey. I need that to be quotes. And I'll do it again. I'll say name, and I'll say Jenya. And I do it again, and I say name. This one's easy, and I say John, right? So yesterday we had to do this if and else if statement. Today I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go underneath our app.get, and I'm going to say app.get again. And this time my path is just going to be /people. And the callback function takes in a request and a response. And this time, instead of using the word send, I'm going to actually say what type I'm sending back. So I'm going to say res.json, and I'm just going to pass in people from before. Hey, this is the time I fell asleep the last 2 days in a row, so this is pretty good. I feel great. Are we all up to this point? Give it another minute. Let's open this other window. It's as hot as hell, but we're using no demon, so. All right. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Let me if you. All right, so we're at app.get people. We got the slash. Let's go check this out on our Postman. Wait a minute. So we'll say /people. We'll hit our send, and well, I don't know. What do we get there? This is my error, right? I can't believe I didn't know what I wanted. There, I get JSON back, right?
Yes.
Hey, that's pretty cool. We didn't use an if-else statement, right?
If it says app dash mini for house change,
It means you probably have some kind of syntax there somewhere. Uh, hey, hang on. Clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. I know it's super exciting, but I can't hear a question. So if you're going to do side talk at this moment, just do it a little quieter. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, this is a much easier way to create those URLs. Good confirmation. Farrah, what was your question? I misspelled people up here. Maybe you've misspelled people. If you're having trouble getting this, throw up your hand. One of us will come to you. Anyone else still? Yeah.
yeah, it's just the name.
All right, clap your hands once you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. Okay, any questions on this so far? Okay, so let's look at a couple more things. So let's pretend we didn't want to just do a GET request, but instead we wanted to do, I don't know, we want to get see people, okay? Actually, let's change this up. So let's pretend I'm gonna change my people to be an object of objects, just kind of for fun. Okay, I'm gonna do a couple things. I'm gonna give each person an ID. So I'm gonna say ID, and I'm gonna give Corey 1. I'm gonna give Jenya, I'm gonna give her 2. And John, I'm going to give this ID of 3. All right. This is a way that we'll see data a lot later. It's breaking because it's not in the correct syntax yet. This is now an object, so this should have a key. And so I'm going to say my key here is the same as the ID. So 1 points to my object of me, 2 points to Jenya, and 3 points to John. So this is an object of objects. Right? This isn't that unusual of a pattern to see. For certain reasons, you'll start to see why in a minute. This is actually a pretty easy way to organize data. If I needed an array of people, I could just take the object.values of people, and then I would get just an array of all of the people objects. So that's not that expensive. And if I need a specific person, I can actually grab them immediately if I know their ID, right? So with this in mind, I should save. We're going to talk a little bit about parameters. Just going to drop this small seed in here. Surely you've seen, we did this with films in Ghibli, and then we did slash and ID, and we got back that film, right? So if I wanted to do something similar with our people, we would still say app.get, and I would say still at people, because that's still the route. But I also want to be able to get from an ID. So I'm going to say slash, and then I'm going to say colon ID. So this colon means don't take this literally, right? No one types in colon ID. They're just going to be typing in some ID. So whichever argument comes after people will be put into here. A little confusing, but I think it's more intuitive than you think when we see it. Okay. Second argument is our callback function, request and response. Fat arrow. And the first thing I want us to do is to learn about something called params, or parameters. And the request can come with parameters. And that parameter is, or the params, is an object with keys values. The key is whatever we wrote here. So we'll say ID is the key. The value is whatever the user puts in that place of that ID. Let me show you. So I'm going to write console.log request.params. Oops. Paramadamadim-dong. And for now, I'm also just going to say res.json. And I'm just going to do an empty object right now because I don't want us to worry about a response. I just want some response. My shoe got loose. I think from that jump. Is everybody caught up to here? Okay, great. So let me demonstrate. So right now it's people. I'm going to make my send. We just get back this object of objects. And here we don't log anything because we're not hitting this route. We're still hitting this route, right? We're still hitting the people route. Now, let's say I add a slash and I say slash Corey. And I hit send. We get that empty object because we've hit that route. No big deal. But we'll see here, we have an ID object that points to Corey. This is the request params. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm training for the Olympics right now. So. Thank you. I might run for Canada though, because I have a chance. Boom. Sick burn on Canada. Okay, so if you do the request.params, you're able to see this object. This ID refers to what we've called the expected parameter there, which we've denoted with the colon. And this value is what I put when I made that GET request as the user. Right, but you'll see it just says Corey here. Yeah. Yes. So I just wrote slash Corey. Now, it's important to know what your IDs are sometimes, right? So right now we don't actually have any IDs of Corey, right? That doesn't make any sense. Our IDs are numbers. So it would probably make a lot more sense if I wanted the Corey to say people/1, because I want a Corey object. So I'll make my request. It's still empty because we're not doing anything. But we get back this ID pointing to 1. Okay, so it's not giving me the information. Ashia says it's not giving me the information. So she's kind of like, that's stupid because it's not doing anything. And I agree. So I'm going to give you all 5 minutes. Well, I'm actually going to give you 4 minutes because it's going to go to 8:40. I want you to try to figure out how to take this and use this to actually give me back the correct JSON response. Okay? Work with the person next to you. Think about it. Try it. It's okay if you don't get it. It's all right.
create something for ID, would be ID 2. Now, that's our response to the user. Okay, the user said for something. User will try, okay? Now, if you want to use this form to compare the guidance. For example, if I change 2, which should give me something back. 2, yes, yes. Now, we use this definition. It used to be this is nothing new. This is whatever you can here. So right now it's here. Now we use this definition to check. Do we have ID? This is yes. Now let's that's why I just this is the user simple. If the user won't have it, what's the search? Exactly. That to give me so you see that there's a change out here. It's like this about the data of the person. Now you have an info box. Now you want to use this information.
Okay, so you don't have to now change. I will have to go to and then change
Yes, it was.
show you how to sort but just know that fast
You getting it?
yeah.
All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. How do we go? Yes, no, maybe so. Lots of no's, some yeses. Okay. What's this? Is that 2 thumbs now? Okay. That's like you're doing it weird. It's all right. As long as I know the thumb lingo. Okay. So let's talk about it. Right, we've got our ID here. We're in request.param, so we're able to get back this one. So if I wanted to isolate this one, what would I need to do?
Key.
I need to key into it, right? Request.params.id. So if I did request.params.id, I'm essentially would have this ID. And then if I needed to get something back at a specific ID here, how would I get that? What? Well, people.id doesn't mean anything. It has these three keys right now. Well, we don't do dot ones, but bracket, right? It's an object, right? So we would just be keying into this object. So if I wanted the information, instead of returning an empty thing, I would say people at the key of request.params.id. Right? We're just keying into that object of objects at the correct ID. So if we do that, we should be able to check, and we would run an isolate for one person. I get Corey. If I change for a different ID for 2, I should get Jenya. I do. And I have control. Yeah, Ashia.
Where does params come from?
Params is coming from, well, it's built in, but it's coming from this colon ID. This is a representation. This is a parameter that it's expecting to receive, that it's going to have. It's going to call the key, the same thing we're calling it as a variable here. Right? If I change this word from ID to type, and I did, now it's going to throw some error, but it's okay. And I make a request. The object will just be type pointing to instead of ID. Right? Typically, you see it as ID. But you could see it as other things as well. Brandon.
But would you be able to use params if there was an array with objects inside?
Tell me more about what you mean.
Like, so params are not only for like keys.
Params are coming in from the URL and is building out a parameter object where the keys are have the same name as the param variable, and the value is what was ever passed there by the user. So it doesn't have any specific purpose of object or array or anything. It's just creating this here in the terminal, this parameter object. That's all, right? I could add another one even if I wanted to. I could say slash name. Oops. Slash name. Right? If I did that and I went back to Postman, I did slash John or something. I mean, it won't make any sense for this, but you'll see that it's still going to create a parameters object now with the ID of 1 and the name John.
So, for
Ashia.
example, if, like how the Films API had different get
Yeah.
URLs, you could do the colon, and then they can type in like films or titles or, and it'll.
Well, not so. Films and titles would be a different thing. Those weren't. Those probably weren't dependent as a variable.
Oh.
It was films is going to give them all the films. Type's going to give them all the type. These are usually more for cutting down within the data. So I have films, but I want a specific film. So film/ID. And that ID is some random series of numbers and letters. So there's no way that that I would be able to program a route per each movie also. It's a representation. Okay. Good question, though. Any other questions on this one? All right, cool. So, in addition to GET requests, we can also make the other types of requests. So I could say app.post if I wanted to make a post request, and I could say slash, like if it's just any general post request, and that would take a request and a response. And here, let's just send some generic thing of like, you made a post request. Right, so typically with a post request, you're going to be receiving a lot of data, usually in the body, it's called, but we won't learn that until like Wednesday probably, or Saturday. So I'm not going to get into that more so than just writing app.post. So now, let's go back to our Postman, and we'll see here, we'll go back to localhost, just to 3000 slash, and if I make my GET request, we should see that you made a GET request at slash URL. But if I change this GET request to a post request, we should get something else. We'll say you made a post request. Right, so depending on the type of the method that we were trying to get, whether get, post, put, patch, delete, we're going to be hitting different routes. Okay, I don't think I need to walk through it, but there is also app.put, there's app.patch, there's app.delete, right? So Express has one for all of those. Express is one for all of us to make it really easy and clean, right? You don't have to do all this if-else and things like that. This is really would be tough to do without Express. I mean, there's other libraries and things too. It would be really hard to do it just plain Node. You'd have to write essentially the Express library, which they've already done. So, any questions on that? Yeah.
Between rest and rest send.
Oh, so N was something that we were doing with Node.
Yeah.
Send is something we're doing with Express, where it's just sending it back. This is like the sent response. We will typically be living in the world of res.json. That's a good question. Any other ones? So, remember how we had some like CORS issues yesterday if you forgot to do access allow CORS? So we can also get issues here. So we have to set it up so that it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and kill the browser and install CORS. So I'm going to write npm I CORS, CORS, enter. Let's go like cross origin something. Essentially, like if it's not coming, the request isn't coming from the exact same spot, it will block it because it will think it's getting attacked or something like that. Corsairs are really annoying. Okay, so once we've installed CORS, I'm going to go ahead and run our node daemon again. And how we use that CORS package is at the very top here. After our express, we can say const CORS, and we'll require, oops, I didn't mean that to be in quotes, require CORS. Oh, this should be at the top. Sorry, we've required our cores, and then beneath this, I'm going to say app.use. We'll learn more what use is in a couple weeks. Use has something to do with something called middleware, which means it's going to go in the middle of that request and the response, right? Every time we've been doing something, we've been getting a request, and then we've been giving a response. But there is space to do things in the middle, like call other functions, and that is called middleware, okay? I'll explain that again later, but functions that are called between the request and the response are in the middle, therefore called middleware. And when you say use, you're saying to use this between each thing. So I'm going to say use cores, invoke it, and that's it. And then I won't get that cores there. Everything else should still be running the same.
So is course used only in Express? Can you use without Express?
Can you use it without Express? I'm unsure. I think it's probably meant to go alongside Express. It might be able to go with something else as well. Any other questions? All right, cool. So John or Jenny, can you guys post the new pairs? So you'll get new pairs today, and you'll be working on the